Hey there, guys. Piper Downs coming at. Excuse me. I'm still really having trouble. Just how many times I've said my old name. I mean, it's hard to break that habit. But Treetop Piper coming at you. We're gonna do a first impression today of the one of the relatively new blends of Germain's Club Mixture, and this is a pipe tobacco with two types of dark Cavendish. It has red and golden Virginia, as well as air cured tobaccos. Um, there's not a whole lot of information out there about this. I don't even think there is a review on tobacco reviews. And I mean, it's out there, because I've got a tin, so it's out there. But such a tiny, tiny, tiny portion of people have actually tried it that doesn't have any reviews. So anyway, I thought that would be the perfect opportunity for me to jump in and fill that niche, fill that gap. And what's funny is since I've been smoking a lot of those Smokers Haven blends by Germain, I've really, really come to appreciate those pop top tins because these are just a pain in the ass, and I almost always end up butchering the tin. I want to save the tins. Hope you guys heard that. Oops. So anyway, let's see what we are working with here. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the browning of the paper. So this, I would imagine, this has probably been in the tin for a little while. Probably at least a year, I would have to say. I mean, without a doubt, I would say at least a year. And this actually kind of reminds me a lot of the King Charles, just the way it looks. Um, just a really good looking tobacco here. You can tell it has a darker, pretty dark hue there. Let the sunlight hit it. I mean, you can really see. There definitely is some lights, some brights in there, but you can see the Cavendish. I think there's, they said two types of dark Cavendish, so I was thinking maybe there was some kind of a light Cavendish in it, like a golden Cavendish, but from what they say, it's two types of dark. mm. Oh yeah, definitely smell those Virginias. But the Cavendish does have quite a presence here. What does that remind me of? Reminds me of the brown flake, kind of. That definitely reminds me of brown flake a little bit. Reminds me of the Uncle Tom's mixture, which I'm going to revisit here shortly, guys. Um, I don't know. I'll have to think about it for a little bit, but when I come back, I'll probably have something else figured out for you. But I just want to keep this, like I've said, the 5 minute format for the tin opening part. So anyway, it's a shag cut. Looks like they actually call this a string cut. Germain's does, I believe. But then you've got chunks of Cavendish in there, so it's a shag cut, but there are some tips or something like that, tips or chunks, whatever you want to call them. And I definitely see some plume on some of this. Like, let me see if I can get this piece out here without. But like, this is like a black tobacco, almost like a really dark brown. And you can see it's got the white. It's got white, all over. I mean, this is an aged. Some of these tobaccos in here are probably really well aged. But yeah, I'm definitely seeing two types of dark Cavendish. I'm seeing like a dark, dark brown, and I'm seeing almost black Cavendish. Yeah, it almost looks like Latakia. That's how black it is. But then you see some of these really dark, kind of like mahogany colors in here too. So that's probably what they mean by two types of dark Cavendish. Is they probably got some like jet black type, and then a little bit of the dark, dark, dark brown, and then you guys see the brights, the reds, and I'm not exactly sure what they mean by flue cured. I mean, I know, I don't know exactly what they mean by flue cured. I'm gonna have to check on that and get back with you guys. But it's definitely wet. It's definitely reasonably wet. I mean, this is gonna take a little bit more dry time than the Smoker's Haven blends. It's not too bad for a shag cut, but it's pretty wet. It's pretty moist. Hey guys, back with you. Got us a bowl dried out, packed up in the K. Woody Meerschaum, my first impression bowl. Whoops. Got some stuff laid out for you. Got the tobacco laid out, got the tin label showing. Just wanted to make sure everybody could see, what we're working with here. And that's what she looks like there, guys. Got a lot of black, real dark stuff, some bright stuff. Just reminds me of Uncle Tom's mixture type stuff, and was weird. You can definitely tell there's some stuff that's heavily, heavily cased in there, because I found a leaf that was like, I guess because it was so moist and so cased with some kind of a sugary or whatever. The sugars were brought out. I mean, it was like Play-Doh. I could like mash it together and imprint my fingerprints. But there's probably some decently cased stuff in there. And really, if it isn't cased, it's just whatever they do to it really brings out the sugar of the tobacco. Hmm. That almost reminds me that these first couple lights kind of reminds me of maybe the San Sepulcro small batch. Doesn't remind me of the Uncle Tom's mixture, which is weird because they have very similar components. Um, Very weird, actually. I'm getting a sweetness, kind of a pungency through the nose. Maybe that's from the Virginias and the flue cureds or something. But I'm also getting a similar flavor than that what that San Sepulcro had. It had the Italian dark fired. Kind of reminds me of that flavor. It's got kind of a dryness to it too that I'm feeling on like the roof of my mouth. It's weird. Really smooth though. Extremely smooth. Um, yeah, it really does remind me of that Italian dark fired. That's weird. It must be because of these Cavendishes, the process. They must stove it or something like. Very different though. It's weird. I like it a lot better than I like the Uncle Tom's, I think. And at first there was this natural sweetness, but now it's almost like it's a little bit more floral than I thought it was going to be. There's kind of like this floral brightness, this floral sharpness to it. Maybe even soapy, I guess you would say. It's crazy. And it's changed a little bit just from the first few puffs. It's a really sharp kind of a. It's not quite sweet, but it's not quite. It's not like Orientals or Latakia. Kind of reminds me of plum cake a little bit too, without the topping. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and smoke the rest of this bowl down, take some notes, and come back with the final conclusion, guys. Anyway, this tobacco is a really tough one for me to do. I've never really. I mean, it's very different from most tobaccos that Germain's puts out. Um, Tough nut to crack for sure. Tough nut to crack, and I kind of just, I couldn't really. It wasn't the same as the cognac mixture. I couldn't like make it into like a timeline. It was more like just words coming to mind. Like the first quarter was, it was real. It was a very sour, earthy flavor. Not much sweetness to it. Not much sweetness to it at all. Um, Really, it was smooth. Really smooth. You can tell top notch tobaccos. And in that first quarter, I didn't know what to make of it. Period. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It was just like curling my tongue into a question mark. You know, what is this? Um, and as I've gotten down further into the bowl, it starts to change a little bit, starts to mellow. Well, it's pretty mellow from the beginning, but it's like a typical Germain blend where it just gets more and more mellow. I almost want to go out on a limb and say that this is plum cake without the topping. I really do. That's the kind of feeling that I've been getting from it. That this is plum cake without the topping, and that would almost fit by the way plum cake looked to me when I had opened it. And once I hit the halfway mark, all I could say it was extremely tangy. It was like the red Virginias had really taken center stage. There really wasn't much sweetness to speak of. And it's sort of reminding me of like the Carolina Red Flake or the Sansa Pulcro, which the first quarter was more Sansa Pulcro like, whereas the halfway point it was more Carolina Red Flake. It was real sourdough bread, real tangy bread notes. And down at the end, it's lost that really high tangy note that it had pretty much throughout the whole bowl. Now it's more like a fresh baked bread flavor. No real sweetness to speak of. It's like fresh baked bread exactly, which is a nice flavor, but it wasn't what I was expecting. So it kind of threw me off. And I think at the end, that's when the other Virginias, the excuse me, that's when the Golden Virginias and probably the Air Cureds kind of take the front seat there. And the Cavendish, I mean, I guess it's in there because there's something that's hard to describe about this blend. I suppose this is the name fits it. Club mixture. You know, I suppose this would be something you'd drink. I mean, it was pretty dry at first. No sweetness to it at all. Almost like black coffee. Kind of left a black coffee aftertaste and stuff in my mouth. And, because I was expecting more of a sweetness. And it just isn't there. And I could see, being at the club, drinking beer, Guinness, or wine, champagne, and this is probably why it's called club mixture, because this is like an out on the town kind of a thing. And at the beginning, I was getting almost a floral. It was so sour and it was almost floralish, whereas towards the end, it's like not like that at all. Like I said, I get more of a fresh baked bread at the end here. Um, and it's just kind of went from this really sour, tangy, I don't know what, je ne sais quoi flavor, really sour and tangy. I actually put it down after that first quarter and walked away for like an hour. I was like, I don't know if I can get through this bowl. And and I wrote down, don't know what to make of it. And I came back and lit it up at maybe the 3/4 mark or the 2/3 mark, and I started feeling it a little bit more, and I realized that this is one of those blends that, because you don't know what to expect, it's kind of off-putting. But as I smoked it down, I started thinking, geez, I suppose I could see myself smoking this every once in a while. This, because the quality is there. It really is a quality blend. It has quality tobaccos in it, but it's just not what I was expecting, and but I could see becoming, growing attached to these kind of flavors. Them having a niche in my smoking rotation. Um, just just a blend that you kind of got to get used to, I suppose. But as I got down to the bottom of the bowl, I started to see why they would put this out. Um, and the reason why I say I think it's plum cake without the topping is, it has probably a very much so similar ingredients, and they put that topping to hit it with a sweetness. And I got that really sour tartness out of plum cake that I was getting out of this at first, and that's why I say that. But the plum cake had this sweetness to it, and I think that that's what they did, was they just took the casing off, and and serve it up as more of a late night club type thing when you're drinking or something like that. If that makes sense. It's like, cigars aren't sweet. There's something that you really enjoy when you're having a beer, and I think that that's the niche that they're trying to fill with this particular tobacco. This isn't something that I would smoke on a regular basis, but I could see maybe smoking it with a cup of coffee in the morning. I didn't really notice big time nicotine hits or anything like that. And like I said, it really has mellowed out. The room note is somewhat sweet, and the high notes, the tangy high notes that it had in the first half to the first 2/3, kind of disappear in that last quarter of the bowl, and it ends up settling down to a really mellow kind of fresh baked bread, kind of earthiness to it, that I think would probably lend itself really well to like a night of drinking or a night out on the town type deal. Um, so I think it is well named club mixture. I think it is well named, and when you look at this, you've got to understand that when they talk about dark Cavendish, these English companies, they're not talking about sweet Cavendish. They're talking about some kind of a stoked Virginia kind of deal. It's a process. And then you see it says red Virginias and golden Virginias. And red Virginias aren't necessarily ever sweet, really, in my experience. And golden Virginias can be sweet. They're not always sweet. And the air cured tobaccos, I think that's something that they put in cigarettes. So there's really not really a whole lot of, from the if you really look into the description, you shouldn't expect sweetness, but for some reason, being an American and being not seeing this as an English blend, I'm thinking, Virginia's Cavendish, this is going to have some kind of a sweetness to it, a natural sweetness, and it just doesn't. And it just doesn't. And I would definitely recommend trying it, but but don't expect some really sweet, tasty Virginia blend. it's more or less something you'd drink with beer, or you'd smoke with a a glass of beer, or something you'd have maybe with a cup of coffee. Because like I said, it was almost bitter, like it was almost like a black cup of coffee. And I've actually gone a little bit further over with this blend than I typically wanted to. It's probably going to be about a 20-minute video. But this blend just had me stumped for a little bit. I think I've done a pretty good job of it, but it took an extra 5 minutes for me to do that. But the bowl is finished. It was a good smoke, was a pleasurable smoke, but I think I just didn't know what to expect, and would I buy this tin again? I don't know. I would like to come back and do a review once I finished it and make my decision at that point. Because I think this is a type of blend that grows on you. I really do think that this is something that I will like, but it'll take some time for me to really appreciate it. But that's it for the review, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I didn't take too long. And I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend, and until the next time, Treetop Piper over and out.